My own brother ripped my wig off in the middle of my wedding ceremony, and the worst part wasn't hearing the guests gasp, it was hearing my mother laugh. For a few seconds, I stood frozen beneath hundreds of staring eyes as my bald head, hidden for months beneath that wig, was suddenly exposed to everyone I loved. My fiancé, Ethan, reached for me, but before he could, my brother, Derek, raised the wig like a trophy and shouted, "The groom deserves a real woman, not a bald ghost." Laughter came from a few distant relatives before silence swallowed the room. My mother folded her arms and smirked. Maybe now he'll think twice before marrying someone who's dying. Those words hurt even more because they weren't true. I wasn't dying. I was fighting stage 2 lymphoma, and after 6 months of chemotherapy, my doctors had finally told me I was responding better than anyone expected. Ethan knew every appointment, every tear, every sleepless night, and he still insisted on marrying me exactly as planned. My mother and Derek never accepted that. They believed Ethan came from money and deserved someone healthy, who could give him children immediately. For months they tried convincing him to leave me. They even introduced him to other women behind my back, pretending it was for my own good. When none of that worked, they planned the cruelest humiliation imaginable. Standing there, humiliated in my wedding dress, I expected Ethan to hesitate. Instead, he calmly picked up my wig, gently placed it back on my head, turned toward every guest, and said into the microphone, "The only ugly thing I see today isn't my wife. It's the people who enjoy humiliating someone fighting for her life." The ballroom erupted into applause. Derek tried laughing it off, but Ethan's best man quietly escorted him away from the altar, while several guests stood between him and me. I thought the nightmare was over, but it had only begun. As the reception continued, my cousin slipped me her phone. "You need to see this." It was a family group chat accidentally sent to her instead of another relative. Weeks before the wedding, my mother had written, "Once Ethan sees her bald in front of everyone, he'll cancel the wedding himself. Save the photographer every embarrassing moment." Attached was a list of instructions assigning relatives to secretly record my reaction from different angles. My hands started shaking so badly, I almost dropped the phone. They hadn't acted out of anger. They had planned my humiliation like an event. I wanted to scream, but Ethan squeezed my hand and whispered, "Don't give them the ending they wanted." I nodded through tears and finished the ceremony. While everyone believed we were trying to save our wedding day, Ethan quietly made several phone calls. Unknown to my mother, he owned part of the event venue through an investment company. Every security camera had captured Derek assaulting me, my mother's encouragement beforehand, and several conversations they thought nobody would ever hear. 2 days later, our attorney called with even worse news. During the investigation into the wedding incident, forensic accountants discovered my mother had secretly emptied the trust fund my late father created for my cancer treatment years earlier. Hundreds of thousands of dollars were gone. The money hadn't paid medical bills. It had financed Derek's failing business. Ethan looked at me across the conference table and quietly said, "Your wedding wasn't the beginning of their betrayal. It was the mistake that exposed everything." I wanted to believe my mother's betrayal ended with the stolen trust fund, but that was only the first secret waiting to be uncovered. Our attorney immediately froze every account connected to my father's estate, and within days investigators found that Derek hadn't simply borrowed the money. He had forged my mother's signature on multiple withdrawals while she knowingly approved the rest. When confronted, they instantly turned on each other. Derek claimed my mother had promised him the inheritance because I wasn't expected to live long enough to need it. My mother broke down crying, insisting Derek manipulated her into believing she was protecting the family's future. Neither explanation mattered anymore. Ethan's legal team filed civil claims for financial fraud, theft of trust assets, and emotional damages while prosecutors opened a criminal investigation after discovering forged banking documents. Then came the first major twist. The wedding venue's security recordings didn't just capture Derek ripping off my wig. They also recorded him bragging to 2 cousins an hour before the ceremony, saying, "Wait until everyone sees her bald. Ethan will run before the vows." Even worse, another microphone picked up my mother laughing and replying, "After today he'll finally realize she's not worth marrying." Those recordings spread through our extended family within days, destroying the false story they had already started telling online. The second twist came during the court hearings when my father's longtime attorney revealed a sealed letter my father had written before his death. In it, he explained that the Cancer Trust could only be accessed for my medical care and that if anyone intentionally misused those funds, they would automatically lose any future inheritance under the estate's no-contest clause. My mother turned pale as the judge confirmed she had legally forfeited everything my father left behind. The third twist arrived when Derek's struggling construction company declared bankruptcy after banks learned the business had been financed with stolen trust money. Creditors sued him almost immediately. The fourth twist came when several wedding guests publicly apologized after admitting they had laughed because they believed my family's lies that I had exaggerated my illness for sympathy. Once my medical records and chemotherapy timeline became public during the case, those same guests publicly condemned my mother and brother instead. Then came the biggest surprise of all. Ethan quietly donated the entire financial judgment we recovered from the lawsuit to establish a foundation in my father's name that helped cancer patients pay for wigs, chemotherapy, transportation, and emergency medical expenses. Watching the first families receive that help healed something inside me that revenge alone never could. 6 months later, the criminal case ended with Derek receiving prison time for fraud, theft, and forgery, while my mother received probation, restitution orders, and permanent financial penalties because of her role in the scheme. She tried contacting me dozens of times, begging for forgiveness and saying family should stay together no matter what happened. I never answered. Family doesn't humiliate you at your wedding, steal the money meant to keep you alive, and laugh while you're fighting cancer. A year later, Ethan and I celebrated our first anniversary by renewing our vows in a small garden surrounded only by people who had stood beside us when everything fell apart. This time I didn't wear a wig. My hair had grown back in soft curls, and I walked toward my husband with my head held high. Losing my hair had never made me less beautiful, but losing the people who pretended to love me showed me what real family actually looks like. And that was the greatest victory of all.